Hello, my name is Makena Piel, and welcome to my senior TED Talk on time and wilderness and physical health. For my question, I researched what are the somatic impacts of time in wilderness, and why does it have this effect? Now, does anybody in here know what an average blood pressure is supposed to be? What?
180 over 20.
120 over
Or
80.
120 over 80. No.
Close enough.
Yeah, that's
I'm
basically
pretty sure those are really different, actually.
Dyslexically.
120 over 80.
Tired.
Now, today is a very big day. It is my senior TED Talk. A senior TED Talk is something that is talked about a lot at Animas High School. From your freshman year on, it's always just senior TED Talk this, senior TED Talk that. Oh, learn this for your senior TED Talk. It's all about the senior TED Talk. And as you might be able to imagine, that's pretty stressful. I'm a little bit anxious, or actually more like slightly terrified, but I'm excited. A well-known fact is that anxiety causes high blood pressure. And so I'm assuming that today, as I'm standing here talking to you terrified, my blood pressure might be a little higher than normal. So above 120 over 80. It's not 180 over 20. So my blood pressure is currently at 161 over 132, which, as I said, is definitely pretty high. Now, blood pressure happens to be a topic of cardiovascular health, which happens to be one of the categories I will be discussing today. The other categories include circadian rhythm, eyesight, and immune function. Starting with cardiovascular health, which is essentially just the health of the heart and the blood vessels. I will be discussing topics such as heart rate variability, heart rate, and blood pressure. Starting with heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the time in between each heartbeat. You can see here the R is for the wave peak, and that's just the heartbeat, and the interval is the time in between the heartbeat, so the heart rate variability. And overall, my research found that time in wilderness increases heart rate variability. Having an increased heart rate variability is good for the body because it leads to better cardiovascular fitness, more resilience against heart muscle stress, and less risk of cardiovascular disease. The first study I looked at the impact forest walking has on cardiovascular relaxation. Heart rate variability was measured using a portable echocardiograph, and it tracked the R-to-R interval frequency. In simple terms, the high frequency data was an indicator of the parasympathetic nervous activity, which means that the body was functioning properly and not overwhelmed or stressed, leading to a higher heart rate variability. Whereas low frequency / high frequency data was an indicator of sympathetic nervous activity, which is essentially the opposite. The study found that high frequency data, or the higher heart rate variability data, was higher in forest environments as opposed to urban environments, and high frequency / low frequency data, or the sympathetic nervous activity data, was lower in forest environments as opposed to the urban environments, showing that forest walking promotes a higher heart rate variability and therefore a better cardiovascular health. Another study that I researched measured heart rate variability using an echocardiogram and compared 3 different environments: an urban forest environment, an urban park environment, and a city center environment. The research of this showed evidence of higher heart rate variability in both green environments, but especially the forest environment as compared to the city center. And it also noted that higher levels of air pollution and noise, often found in the city center, led to a lower heart rate variability. Moving on to heart rate, or more commonly known as pulse. Your heart rate is the number of times your heart beats per minute. A normal resting heart rate should be around 60 to 100 beats per minute. And a lower heart rate is good because it takes less effort for your body to pump blood, which allows for a more effective and efficient heart function, a better cardiovascular fitness, and it can actually drastically reduce risk of a heart attack. We use the same studies for heart rate as we did for heart rate variability. The first study used the same RR interval data and found that lower values were seen in forest walking than in the urban walking, which basically means that walking in wilderness environments can also lead to a lower heart rate. Our second study measured heart rate with an oscillometric blood pressure monitor, and the results showed that visits in green environments, especially urban forests, were associated with a lower heart rate. And environmental stressors, such as noise and air pollution, in the city center environment were shown to have a negative impact on cardiovascular health, increasing heart rate. Now our final cardiovascular topic is blood pressure. Blood pressure is the amount of force used to pump blood throughout the arteries. The systolic blood pressure, or the number on the top, is measured when the heart beats and pumps blood. And the diastolic number, or the number on the bottom, is measured in between pumps when the heart is resting and refilling with blood. Normal blood pressure, as I said, is around 120 millimeters of mercury over 80 millimeters of mercury. And high blood pressure can be detrimental to human health because it can put you at risk for heart attack, stroke, or other heart and artery issues and diseases. Our first study showed some evidence of lowered systolic blood pressure in forest walkers as compared to urban walkers. However, the differences were not significant, and they found no contrasts in diastolic blood pressure. However, our second study showed how environmental factors negatively impacted blood pressure, systolic and diastolic blood pressure both being affected by air pollution, and diastolic blood pressure also being affected by noise levels, which again were higher in the city than they were in the forest. This demonstrates how blood pressure can actually be benefited by the different environments, despite the weak evidence found in the previous study. Furthermore, another study explored the effects of Shinrin-yoku, or Japanese forest bathing, on blood pressure. The experiment essentially tracked a number of different participants' blood pressure throughout a 3-day trip of forest bathing. This graph shows how participants started with a mean blood pressure of 140.1 over 84.4, which is considered to be high to normal blood pressure. And after their time spent in nature, their mean blood pressure was lowered to 123.9 over 76.6, suggesting that their time spent in wilderness environments had a beneficial effect on their pre-existing high blood pressure or stage 1 hypertension, expanding on what was found on previous research. This study, as opposed to others, proves that blood pressure can actually be treated when high and not only benefited when previously stable. In addition, there was also a systematic review on the effects of Shinrin-yoku on blood pressure. Using 20 different scientific journals, all fitting a certain criteria, the study determined that there was a mean difference of -3.15 systolic over -1.75 diastolic in forest environments as opposed to non-forest environments, further validating that time in wilderness impacts blood pressure and overall cardiovascular health. Interestingly enough, for my senior project, I tracked my blood pressure while hiking and camping in Snow Canyon State Park. And on this trip, I found myself in a bit of a dilemma, multiple times.
I'm a little lost. Keep getting lost though. It's the first sign I've seen in miles. I need more of those because I could have used them. Keep on getting lost, which is not good. Oh my god, how am I supposed to get out of here, bro? I have no idea where I am. Why is it not going? I'm a little.
Okay. Now, as you might be able to guess, that was a very, very stressful situation. Just imagine being a teenage girl, alone, hiking in the desert for hours, alone, running out of water in 80+ degree heat, alone, in a state park she hasn't been to in like 10 years, alone, no idea if she's going the right way or is even on the trail anymore, all alone. Now, some could compare this stress to that of a senior TED Talk at Animus. Now, remember how I said that anxiety and stress leads to high blood pressure? I think it's interesting and fascinating to recognize that throughout this phase of complete navigational failure on my end, and the extreme anxiety that came along with it. And my blood pressure stayed relatively low the entire time. Continually, time in nature also impacts circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm was actually what started this whole project idea. Ever since I was a little kid, I noticed that I always slept better when I was camping. And so I started to wonder what else there was, and how else does spending time in nature impact your physical health. Circadian rhythm is the physical, mental, and behavioral changes that a body undergoes throughout a 24-hour cycle. It's mainly affected by lightness and darkness. A common phrase that you might hear when discussing circadian rhythm is dim light melatonin onset, or DLMO. DLMO is the time in which dim light conditions cause melatonin secretions to begin, and it marks the beginning of the body's biological night. One study compared the differences in sleep from a normal day-to-day life and time spent at an experimental camp. The study found no differences in sleep duration. However, bedtime, wake time, and mid-sleep point in the camping program were significantly earlier. The DLMO was found to be 2 hours earlier while camping versus the pre-camp setting, basically meaning that the body was preparing to sleep earlier. Another study comparing the same DLMO in different environments also found that the onset was 2 hours earlier when exposed to only natural light, such as sunlight, as compared to artificial light, like just light bulbs and phone screens. Both of these show that when the body prepares to sleep earlier, its circadian rhythm syncs up with the natural light-dark cycle, like outside, and that leads to enhanced hormone balance, metabolism, cognitive function, and more. Continuously, time in the wilderness also impacts vision, specifically myopia. Myopia, otherwise known as short-sightedness, is a vision condition that makes objects that are close up appear far away, but objects that are far away appear blurry. And it's typically caused by axial elongation, which is the growth or expansion of the axial length of the eyeball, from the cornea to the retina. Our first study takes a look at children, the amount of time they spend outside, and the rates of developing myopia. The study explains that natural light stimulates the retina in your eye, causing it to release dopamine, which helps the eyeball keep its natural shape, preventing axial elongation. Children exposed to natural light, just because of this, have better distance vision and less prevalence of myopia. The study found that for each additional hour of time spent outdoors per day, there was a 2% decrease in the odds of developing myopia. And they additionally found that the prevalence of myopia was higher in Singapore, where children spent less time outside when compared to the prevalence in Australia, where children spent more time outside. In addition, another study represents the benefits of time outdoors on eyesight by implementing a program in which schools were encouraged to take students outdoors for at least 120 minutes per day for myopia prevention. And the results showed a 46.1% decrease in myopia rates in children, proving that time outside is beneficial for eyesight. Finally, I will talk about the impact time in wilderness has on immune function, focusing on natural killer cells. NK cells are white blood cells that are programmed to attack and destroy other corrupted, harmful cells, such as cancer cells. Multiple studies followed the same experiment, tracking NK cell activity. They had their subjects participate in a forest bathing trip with a duration of 3 days, having their blood drawn repeatedly to track their NK cell activity. The research noted that the trees of various names that I cannot pronounce in the environment surrounding the participants expelled phytoncides, or essential oils. These phytoncides happen to increase NK cell activity, and it increased their ability to attack harmful cells. It boosted the level of proteins that assist NK cells, and it could also reverse the negative effects of weakened NK cells. One study even found that a 2-hour nature walk on 2 consecutive days in a row increased number and activity of NK cells by 50 and 56%, and they remained boosted by 23% even a month after returning to urban life. All of these studies found that NK cell activity increased in natural environments for around a duration of 7 to 30 days, proving that time in wilderness can have an effect on your immune function and even reduce risk of cancer. In closing, time spent in wilderness does actually have a positive effect on physical health, and it's important for us to recognize. Now, I'm not saying that going outside will fix all your problems and make you perfectly healthy, but the benefits are worth a try. If you have high blood pressure, Nana, maybe you should try going for a nature walk. And Lori and Kyle, I don't know if you wear glasses because you have short-sightedness, but maybe you should go camping. And I personally might consider religiously sleeping outside to try and fix my disastrous senior sleep schedule. Thank you.